Now I'd like to recognize you and say welcome to the beginning of my week 11 analysis for the Thursday night football game between the Titans at the Packers at Lambeau Field. The Titans coming off a loss on Sunday, or a win on Sunday, against the Denver Broncos, and the Packers obviously with an upset, as people have been saying about it, over the Dallas Cowboys at home at Lambeau. Obviously, short week, a few days between these two games. Looking at what the Titans did against the Broncos, it looked like, honestly, a very dominant defensive game where they held the Denver Broncos to 10 points, and they only scored 17, which has kind of been the case for them this year. They really haven't, been scoring a lot of points, and their points per game for Tennessee, I know, isn't anything impressive. And I mean, neither is the Packers. The Packers have had a very, abysmal offense, as most people know. Sunday being an outlier, obviously, them being able to put up 31 points against the Cowboys, and against the Cowboys defense that has been, getting to the quarterback the most this season. I know that, looking at stats from the game afterwards, having watched it on Sunday, me being a Packers fan, that Micah Parsons was held to just one, pressure, which was his lowest of the whole year, which is crazy. And not to say that they didn't get to Rodgers in that game, but Rodgers had a lot more time. There was some times that he got sacked and it wasn't very good. But overall, I mean, Aaron Rodgers obviously doing, very well. 3 TDs, all to Christian Watson. QB, his rating obviously being pretty good. QBR, not too shabby. Not even having to pass it a whole lot. But, having faith in his wide receivers and going into the deep ball with Watson on numerous plays. I know Watson only had 4 receptions for 107 yards, 3 of those touchdowns. Alana 58 to get started. And I mean, obviously 8 targets. One of those targets to Watson, I know being a pass to Watson that could have potentially been a touchdown, where Watson just didn't look up and had his head turned around to his QB, just kind of a amateur rookie mistake and that sort of thing. And obviously it's, the Packers, defense, giving up a lot to CeeDee Lamb, but really playing well when they needed to, when the team needed to get back in it. Tony Pollard had, a kind of up and down game to me. There was some runs really that he was, getting some longer runs. Obviously only a run of 14, that running him a lot because they didn't have Zeke. Obviously the Packer defense very banged up. They didn't really, they obviously had, the Packers obviously had 2 lost fumbles where, I mean, Amari, pretty much gave Dallas a free touchdown, on his. They have released Amari Rodgers this week. And then obviously Aaron Rodgers, it was kind of DeMarcus Lawrence just getting in there and really not getting blocked at all to, force a fumble on Aaron Rodgers. I'm pretty sure it was DeMarcus Lawrence. Maybe not. I guess I'm kind of looking at this, trying to see who it was, but not a huge deal. But I think the Packers defense coming in and playing with a lot of, the Packers defense coming in and playing with a lot of adversity. I guess now looking and showing you the stats, I mean, you wouldn't expect Isaiah McDuffie, obviously the substitute for Devondre Campbell, coming in, having a lot of total tackles, 8 solo tackles, which is huge. No tackles for loss, but, have it showing that he showed up to the game. I guess the one player you think and wouldn't have expected to kind of be the hero for the defense was Rudy Ford. a safety that they had plugged in, and they used Darnell Savage quite a bit at the slot. He didn't look terrible. I actually was kind of happy with Darnell. There was sometimes that CD got position on him and stuff. I know on some passes, but a pass deflected, and I think they'll continue to use Savage like this because Eric Stokes is out for the year. The one thing that I guess really worries me is that only 2 sacks, one from Kenny Clark and one from Adrian Amos, an unlikely candidate, doesn't always blitz that much. But the defense really rallying behind the fact that they're without Devontae Campbell, they are without Rashawn Gary, and just overall playing, I guess, different type of defense because they don't have guys that, they don't have the, I guess, personnel where, like Quay Walker, obviously they've had him in a lot of like one middle linebacker sets because, that they were trying to, stack the line and get a little bit of pressure on Dak, but I guess a decent amount of QB hits on Dak. I know that they were getting, some pressure on him, making it hard for him. He didn't really run all that too much. But, analyzing this game, and then I guess going and looking at, I guess, Titans Broncos, Tannehill, I guess, threw, for a good amount of yards. 19 of 36 really isn't the completion percentage that you probably want. Henry had a very slow game against, one of the league's better defense with the Broncos. We all know that if the Broncos had an offense, they would be one of the top teams in the league. I guess kind of the random, person that showed up this game was Nick Westbrook. Sorry if I butchered this last part of his last name. But obviously 119 yards, a third-year player. Austin Hooper, I think you would expect to do more. A lot of short gains with him. Robert Woods being their leading wide receiver with not that many yards this year. But, it was Tannehill's first game back. I still don't think that really would affect, how he would play very much because this is pretty typical of what he's been doing all year. Nothing flashy. It's hard to move on from a guy like A.J. Brown and replace the production. As even, I guess a similar situation to the Packers where it's like the Titans, got rid of their top guy in the offseason and having similar struggles, I guess, to the Packers, but just without, I guess, really that explosive guy. And on Sunday, you finally get Christian Watson to be healthy the whole game, and you just, you get him healthy the whole game, and he's able to, play and really carry the team on offense. I think, it just really showed how much he does, even when he's not catching the ball and he was playing and being a decoy and that sort of thing. He honestly just made it look really easy to me. I don't even feel like he used his top end speed all too much, to be honest with you. Like some of these deep balls, I feel like he had to slow down for the balls and that sort of thing. And that's just Rodgers not having much playing time with Watson and them trying to get him healthy, But like I said with Tennessee, I think their defense has proven that it's very stout this year, even barring the injuries that they've had and have had the whole year. It looks like to me like they got a lot of sacks from, a lot of different contributors, on Russell Wilson, who, he's not who he once was, but isn't the easiest guy to sack. But to me, I guess this game is kind of tough for me to call. I think if the Packers show up the way they did on Sunday and are able to, play that way, I think that it's a win for them. But obviously, I don't want to put too much stock into one game, even though it was against a pretty good, Cowboys defense that has been leading the league in sacks. And it's, kind of astonishing. Rodgers had been getting hit a lot this year, which I think is another reason why their offensive problems have just been like a lot worse. Because, when your QB's on his back, he can't really build a rapport with any of his wide receivers, even the guys that he's been familiar with for years, like Allen Lazard and I guess, not really anybody else because, Romeo Dobbs has been out for a couple weeks, and he was kind of getting a rapport with him. Christian Watson is finally back. It's kind of like the two rookie shows, I guess, for the Packers this year, where Dobbs was doing well for the most part. Some games doesn't do as much. Now he's out. Watson has his breakout game, as everyone's calling it. But I think, looking at this, and I think looking at the way the Packers played, I think that they're going to try and do a lot of the same kind of things that worked for them on Sunday. That's the thing, is that a lot of the times with these Thursday night games, it is a continuation of things that they did, the previous game on Sunday. And personally, I want to say that I think the Packers are going to win this game. I think that Russell Wilson has been under duress all year and that sort of thing. Going and looking at this, it's like yards passing really abysmal for Tennessee, and their yards rushing, not terrible, but it's like, I know Henry had a slow start to the year. I know that when the Packers aren't the same team, but I know the last time that the Packers played the Titans, they really limited Henry when he was having an incredible year. And looking at this, Green Bay obviously now in the conversation potentially for a wild card spot with that win, a huge boost. Tennessee is kind of coasting through their division. Indianapolis, obviously got a win on Sunday, and then Jacksonville, but it's like you're not going to be threatened by Houston at all. Jacksonville, I think, they either have to win out or have the rest of the division really collapse, I guess, on them. But Indianapolis is like, and who's to say that like Indianapolis is a team that is going to keep on winning with Jeff Saturday. I'm not saying that Jeff Saturday is a bad coach. I think the team really rallied behind him on Sunday to beat a struggling Raiders team. But Tennessee is in the driver's seat in their division. They have a reason to win, I guess. But overall, I think that, they're kind of looking at it that it's like, it's going to be tough for them to, get a higher seed with where they are right now and where their records lie within the AFC. Looking at this, let's look here. Obviously, you look at the Titans, and it's like they obviously have a few teams that are contending with them, for this. So it is very tight. But then you look at the fact that it's like and Tennessee obviously has a win over Baltimore and best win percentage of conference games, And then even the Jets, wins the tiebreaker over Buffalo. Kind of a crazy week. Buffalo's loss, really bad for them, actually. And now the Jets, take the lead in there, and now the Patriots are obviously a little bit behind, but the AFC is really, really stacked. At this point, like, no team is even, there's a lot of teams that it's like are in the mix, no team that's utterly dominant and that sort of thing. But I guess looking at the NFC, it's like, Minnesota obviously, still needs a game ahead of Philadelphia because they beat them in week 2. And then you look at this, and it's like the Packers are obviously 9th with, Washington, I guess, getting a surprising win last night, being ahead. And we obviously, strength of victory, I guess, wins the tiebreak over Arizona, best win percentage in conference games. So the Packers are in the driver's seat for where they are. They just need to, keep on winning, keep on pushing. And obviously they play Philadelphia after the Titans. So it's almost like, the Philadelphia obviously lost their first game, yesterday night. But, they don't, if the Packers don't beat the Titans and then they lose to Philadelphia, they're kind of back into a position where it's like they're 4-8. They're 4-8 after those two losses, and with a best record of 9-8 over the entire season if they were to win out after that. And I'm not going to say that it's not. I'm not going to say it's impossible to do that, but it's like looking at the AFC. I mean, it's it is. I wouldn't say top heavy, but after the first two, it's like it's a very close race. But yeah, I mean, you obviously have the Giants, and it's like, I mean, here's the Cowboys here. The Packers, obviously, it's like, could still, get ahead, of the Cowboys in a couple games, if they're able to, match their record and have the tiebreak over them. Obviously, Commanders hold a leverage over the Packers, and I mean, the Vikings, I mean, they still have to play one more time. Who knows if the Packers can even beat them the second game of the season, which is at Lambeau, but it's a good amount of time away. But obviously the Packers, it was a must-win on Sunday. Otherwise, your playoff hopes are just very slim to none. But looking at I want to look at like the team stats for this. The team itself, it's like you look here at their opponents, the total touchdowns, for Tennessee, and it's just like you're looking at this and, total first down. Their opponents, they give up a lot of first downs, but they hold them when they're in the red zone. And I mean, passing wise, it's like you're up against Aaron Rodgers. This 112-70, really not a good thing, I guess. Especially after Sunday, it's like the Packers were able to convert a lot of plays, even a fourth down one, against, a good Cowboys defense that, I mean, you could say was underperforming, or where the Packers just outright, showed up to play in that. And third down efficiency, like I said, is, a bit better in that sort of thing. Fourth down percentage, I guess, a lot of teams go for it on fourth down against the Titans, in this sort of thing. Completion percentage, is pretty high, I guess, but it's like some defenses, give up a lot, but then are very good in the red zone, like I've said. But, net passing yards, I mean, this is crazy to me. It's like you've got a winning record, but you've got 60-some% less, yards than your opponents and that sort of thing. And obviously opponents have 9 interceptions against the Titans. This is a really good thing. This is like what I've said, is that maybe the Titans are just really opportunistic defense, which is always scary to go up against a team like that. Obviously sack yards loss. They've got into the opposing quarterback a good amount, but I mean, the Packers just played against, the Cowboys, who have the best pass rush in the NFL with the most sacks and that sort of thing going into last week. And, hopefully, obviously their rush defense is very good, and that sort of thing, low yardage situations. I mean, if you have a really good run defense, it makes it really hard on opposing offenses, but obviously the run defense is the strength of this Titans team. And obviously the Packers, it's like, haven't been able to really rely on, the passing game. They haven't been able to really rely on the passing game all year. It came alive on Sunday, but you still didn't see a phenomenal game from Rodgers. Obviously, pretty good, compared to what it's been. But, I guess crazy thing here, total offensive plays, in the relative range, I guess 80 more plays and that sort of thing. And total yards, they get, like I said, they give up a lot of yards and then a lot of, opportunistic things. But I feel like the Packers, it's like with a Hall of Fame QB and with obviously a very good duo in the backfield in Jones and A.J. Dillon, you don't really want to be playing that kind of ball with them, because it's like it's probably going to end up not being very good to your team. And I mean, crazy here, I guess, obviously the Titans, are going to have a good, time of possession each game because they run the ball primarily with Henry, which always just kind of bloats your thing, but still less than their opponents. And I feel like the more opportunities you give a quarterback like Rodgers, the more punishing it's going to be, But I guess interceptions, like I've said, 9 interceptions on the team. That's like 1 a week. That's pretty good, and that sort of thing. I guess. Wait a minute. They have only had 9. That is 1 a week because the Titans have already had their bye. But penalties. I guess. Yeah, not a lot of. Not too bad here. Pretty similar to other team, but. I guess we're looking at there for that. I want to look at the Packers and their, team stats and that sort of thing. I guess I didn't look at. Opponents, obviously, like I said, they get more sacks. But, and they have a little bit better of a rushing yard. But this, I feel like the Packers, when they have been running it, have been getting a lot of chunk plays, and Aaron Jones has been, breaking a lot of tackles this year and making a lot of guys miss, showing that he's really fully healthy and doing a lot of work this year. But, looking at the Packers, obviously it's no shock that, opponents per game is higher. Total points, that sort of thing. Total touchdowns, kind of crazy here, close margin, I guess. A lot of these coming from last week, but they also gave up a lot, to the Cowboys, 4 touchdowns. But the Packers, the problem I don't think has been them moving the ball so much. It's been scoring and some missed opportunities and that sort of thing. First downs by penalty. Oh, this is kind of a nut stat. It's the same. Third down efficiency. They've been a lot better, I guess, and people have been kind of criticizing the Packers defense, that it's not living up to expectations. Obviously a little banged up at this point, but at the beginning of the year, people were saying this was going to be a, perennial defense. And I do think that, 32%, isn't that bad, is not that bad. And then obviously the Packers have been 40% on third down. You'd like to think that it'd be better, but looking at the Packers, I guess, passing touchdowns and then opposed to rushing touchdowns, they haven't really give up that many, I guess they've given up 9 rushing touchdowns. Sometimes the defense just looks like they get beat, but other times they look really stout against the run, the Packers defense. But, you're going up against Henry. They're going to have to correct this a little bit. Obviously, like I said, the Packers did do really well against Henry years ago when Henry was having, arguably an MVP-like season and a really good, having the best season of any running back that primarily just runs the ball. The Packers defense, I don't think, has gotten as many interceptions as they think they have wanted. They're kind of, and especially with last game, they obviously had 2 from Rudy Ford, so it's only 5 before then. But, sacks, obviously, they've been outdoing their other teams in sacks. They must have just pulled ahead on Sunday. Rodgers was sacked a couple times. And the Packers only sacked, Dak a couple times because the pass rush is just a lot worse without Gary in there. But, you'd like to see this be a little bit higher. I think this was one of the primarily things that a lot of people hated about the Packers this year and how they played is that they didn't run Jones as much, even though he's been having, a pretty good year for not having ran that much. The average for the team is pretty good. They're obviously going up against a stout run defense. And the Titans, rushing yards per game, like I said, this, I feel like this could be a little bit better. I feel like all you need to worry about is Henry on the Titans. Tannehill does kind of scramble sometimes, but nothing insane. But I guess, turnovers, fumbles lost was really, really bad. Fumbles this year has been a problem for the Packers. A lot of players. I know Romeo Doubs had a fumble. I know that Amari Rodgers had 4 of these, accounting for a fifth. And I mean, they released him this week. I know Aaron Rodgers has had a couple of. He's had a couple of these of fumbles, because teams just have been getting too much pressure on him, too quick sometimes. But I guess, average per game, the Packers, are having less penalties. And I know that they were one of the least penalized teams early in the year. I don't know if that's still true. I know they've been having some penalties in the last few weeks that are just bad and that sort of thing. Obviously, -5 in the turnover ratio, which I remember, in the seasons that the Packers did really well and were 13-3, they had one of the best turnover ratios in the league. And this is obviously really, really, really bad. And that sort of thing. And even on Sunday, it's like they still had two turnovers and put up 31 points. I think, the primary concern with, releasing Amari Rodgers is that he just too much of a risk, for fumbling the football. And, some other players, with, random fumbles at times. I know that even Aaron Jones had a fumble that was, really, really lucky that the Packers didn't turn that ball over on Sunday because it just bounced. It was slapped straight to the ground, but bounced right back to Aaron Jones. But, looking at this game, I really think that the Packers are going to be able to play like they played very well. I think they played very well. I think against, a Cowboys team that it's like nobody really thought they were going to win. To be fair with you, it's like, to be fair with you guys from my own perspective, I personally feel that it's like if Amari Rodgers doesn't have the fumble that he had, thus giving the Cowboys a free touchdown, I think the Packers win that game very soundly. I think that the Cowboys defense, I wouldn't say was playing terribly, but they weren't able to rely on their pass rush, which I think, did cover up their defensive backs. And a lot of sacks can definitely do that, help your pass defenders, a lot, because, Christian Watson had a heyday, and, he was definitely, maybe showed that he has really great ability. It's only one game. I'm still hopeful for it. I guess I want to kind of look at the full injury report here. We'll look at the Titans first. I don't think Tennessee Titans. I guess we have a lot of Caleb Farley injured. Not really that injured. Amani Hooker, the safety. They say that he's out. A lot of guys injured for this team. Zach Cunningham being out is kind of huge. He's been a very good player. Obviously he didn't play in this last game and they still did fairly well, but who knows if what's going to happen there. But overall, Tannehill obviously still has an ankle injury. That's probably another reason why he hasn't been really running all too much, been a little banged up there. But looking at this team, they look, pretty injured, I guess. And it's like a safety being out, a starting safety. It says that he was a full participant on the Titans estimated practice report Monday. But, they still say that he's out. Maybe it's just a decoy. It's never good. But Dupree, they list as questionable, but no actual details. That would be a huge blow to them. But Dupree being a very good. Christian Fulton, a young cornerback, questionable. Who knows if he's battling something. But yeah, back injury to Caleb Farley, their young corner that I think was supposed to be pretty good. This is not good whenever you're losing depth against. And then, there's another hamstring injury And then they do have another like cornerback, I guess. He was ruled out for the remainder of the game, so it's like maybe they're just really trying to, prevent further injury, to their defensive backs, because I mean, if you're getting really shallow at defensive back, it's going to be harder and harder on your team. And while they've been good against the run, it doesn't really matter if teams are able to get ahead of the Titans because they don't have anybody reliable to play defensive back. But I guess now we're going to go look at we're going to go and look at Green Bay. Watts is listed on Monday's practice estimate due to an ankle issue. I guess, I'm fully expecting Watson to be ready to go. Alan Lazard shows this is limited. This is no surprise. They really want to get Lazard. And Lazard had a big play on Sunday, to keep a drive alive and a really fat gain on a slant. And that he just absolutely, he didn't really do much, but he broke the cornerback's ankles. I remember Aaron Jones has a shin injury, kind of unfortunate there. Rodgers was a non-participant. This doesn't really worry me. It's a shorter week. They really don't want him going into, Thursday with maybe a sore thumb or a swelled up thumb or anything like that. They say that Cobb could come back. This would be huge. I think Cobb, was playing at a very high level before he left. It was before he was put on IR, him and Rodgers had like the top QBR to receiver rating in the NFL or something like that. He was converting up there down. He was playing really well. Eric Stokes and Rashawn Gary, out for the year. Obviously Gary, was put on last week because of his tore ACL. Eric Stokes, really bad. The one thing I guess I see here that is, a really good sign, it looks like, is that they don't even list Devondre Campbell on here, unless I'm blind. Am I not seeing? Yeah, Devondre Campbell not on here, and that's obviously a really, really good thing. They'll need I guess, he is on here, but he's not listed, listed to have an injury or what the comment is on that. That's really good. Chris Barnes, questionable. If they can start to get healthier at linebacker, a really good thing, especially against Derrick Henry. I feel like if you shut Henry down, it's going to be very, very, very tough on the Titans offense, and it seems to me like, looking at the last game, even though they dominated, they still weren't able to really, do too much, and obviously the, one sack from Denver, not a huge, game, but it's like Denver, having traded away Bradley Chubb, kind of interesting there. And just not having a defense that really, I think, sacks all too much. Still, really good, where it's like, look at all these passes deflected, from the Tennessee Titans. You look at this, and Kareem Jackson, Sane Bassie, Deshaun Williams, DJ Jones, PJ Locke, Patrick Surtain, Boney. Just a lot of pass deflections across the board from a lot of guys that it's like you kind of expect. Deshaun Williams is a lineman. You kind of expect Patrick Surtain to have a really good game. But, not a lot of batted balls. I guess a good amount from Terrence Mitchell. But, the Broncos' passing game is just really questionable, I feel like. And, a lot of sacks, with a good amount of sacks from numerous players. But it's like if the Packers play like they did, against the top pass rush in the league with the most sacks, then I really think that you're looking at a game where it's like the Packers are going to win, and they do project the Packers to win this game. They're giving them a 59.7% chance, almost 60%. The spread is only -3 +3, not huge there. I think that, the Packers, are going to do a lot of kind of dip and dunk type plays against, the Tennessee Titans. Because, to me, it's like they really don't want to, they don't want to risk Rodgers further with a lot of deep passes. But if they feel like, the Titans, were just getting to Russell Wilson last week because the line for the Denver Broncos is banged up, then, and then they play like they did, this game, I think the Packers can handily win this game. And obviously they just played, and kind of proved it against, the best pass rush in the league, with, I guess one of the top players with Micah Parsons, potentially winning Defensive Player of the Year. Obviously, DeMarcus Lawrence doing really well. But thinking about this game, I do think that the Packers are going to win it just because they have the edge on passing by a little bit, and it's just been really tough for Tannehill, and his ankle injury is definitely not going to help him too much. And I do still think that the Packers' cornerback core is still really good with Jair, Rasul Douglas, Darnell Savage. Rudy Ford played really well, really good energy. Even besides the interception, made some open field tackles on Tony Pollard, who is by no means an easy tackle. One of the fastest running backs in the league. Really slick, really good movement from him. But, Rudy Ford playing really well. Adrian Amos, obviously, coming up. Them changing the scheme a little bit. I think they played, honestly better than they had been, even though they didn't have as much pressure as you would want, which is the reason why I think, there was a good amount of, passes to CeeDee Lamb that were just, you can't cover him long enough, or Dak Prescott gets, a really comfortable pocket all game. But looking at this, I want to predict, and I'm going to make my prediction now. I think that the Packers win this game by 7. I don't know if they'll score as much as they did on Sunday, but I am thinking in the realm of like 27 points. And then the Titans, 24 to 27 points, something like that. I really do think that the Packers didn't really hurt themselves, I guess, but it's like they gave up the 2 fumbles that were just really, really bad for them, made it a close game. And I think if you take out the Amari Rodgers, fumble on the punt return, that it's like, the Packers would have won handily, because that really just gave a free touchdown to the Cowboys. But, now that Amari Rodgers gone, I think that they're just going to have Dixon, doing punt returns, because he's been doing kick returns, and he's looked fine and very comfortable at it, and hasn't even been too bad at it. But I think that, the Packers will win a sound victory, because the Titans just can't figure out their passing game, and they just don't have the weapons. Their best weapon being, honestly, Hooper, and he doesn't even seem to be performing very well. And with, I guess the Packers getting a little bit healthier, if Campbell plays, it's huge. But even if Campbell doesn't play and they just rest him, I think that the Packers do better against these kind of bigger-bodied. I think that they do pretty well against these bigger-bodied running backs, and it's always the Blazer-type ones that it's like always seem to do well against the Packers with their burst. But I think that, given the recent play of the Titans, I think it's going to be likely that they stack the box a lot against Henry, which worked really well when they played him years ago. Packers, I would like to say 27, and then Titans, I think you give up, 17 to 20 points or something like that is my prediction. So Packers by like 7 points in this game at Lambeau Field. And I guess, I do kind of want to look at forecast for Thursday night football in Lambeau. Yeah, let's just look at weather, I guess. Daily, I mean, what do they say for Thursday here? I don't really usually look here, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's going to be a cold game. Colder with snow showers, 49% chance. Day, night, 21 degrees. Real feel is, 5 degrees. Really cold, not surprising. They say a little bit of wind, wind gusts. Cloud covers 80%, so yeah, the probability of thunderstorms, I guess, isn't that much, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty cold game Thursday. I'm not surprised about that. We're halfway through November now. So, yeah, I really think that it's going to be kind of a run game type game. You kind of get, the feeling that it's like Tennessee, just where they're from. It's like they aren't going to be used to it. Who knows? I do feel like I remember when Henry was in Lambeau before that it was colder and it was later in the year. But and I mean obviously he didn't do too much that game. But I'm gonna close this down, and I still stick by what I said. I still stick by what I said, and I think it's gonna be like 27 to like 20 or something. Is what I predict the final score of the game to be on Thursday Night Football.